Chairman Ajit Pai is going to be facing questions from legislators at a hearing on Capitol Hill this morning. Our next guest will be there. I want to welcome Senator Shelley Moore Capito, a Republican of West Virginia. She's a member of the Commerce and Appropriations Committee. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
I have about a million questions, but I want to ask you, what is your top question that you plan to ask this morning?
Well, I mean, I live in a rural part of the country, and there's a digital divide. And I have talked a lot with the Chairman Pai, and he's actually been to West Virginia several times. How are we going to close this digital divide? It's economic, it's education, it's healthcare. That's of great concern to me. So the rural broadband areas of the Connect America Fund is something that I'm going to be asking a lot of questions about.
Senator, when you think about a couple of the big transactions that the FCC has been looking at or has had to look at, AT&T, of course, with Time Warner is one, but one that may affect rural areas like yours is this Sprint T-Mobile deal. Where do you come down on that deal, and what do you want to know about it?
Well, of course, I want to have the deal fully vetted, I think, and the FCC and the members of that commission will obviously do that. At the same time, I am into figuring out how to deploy 5G into areas where I live. I'm interested in how these companies are going to be moving forward on that and how a merger might affect that. So I think it's more about the penetration of the market into areas that are unserved or underserved. And I think T-Mobile and Sprint are a combination of the two of those could be very useful and very helpful here. So I'm looking at it positively, but I want to hear more about it.
In terms, though, of what you need to do to incentivize that at the same time, in terms of that investment, in the same time that you probably want to bring prices down or at least hold them steady, what do you do about that?
Well, I think it's all about broadening the market, broadening the availability, and bringing that to new and more innovative markets. And I think that's how you hold the price down. And I think if you can point the emphasis, or at least move the emphasis away from maybe the larger, more profitable areas to a broader market, I think that helps, and that will help, I think, in areas where I am concerned about, and where a lot of people out in the West absolutely are concerned about as well.
I'm curious what your take is on whether you think the FCC needs to look at regulating internet companies in a different way. We've been having a conversation all morning about this interview that Jack Dorsey did on NBC News last night about kicking Alex Jones off of Twitter, and where you stand on big electronic platforms like that.
Well, I was at the hearing with Mr. Zuckerberg when he came before our committee, our very large committee. I was the 43rd questioner of 45, and I think that was basically the crux of the inquiry to him on Facebook, was where do you draw the line? How do you draw the line? How do you make these decisions? And I think we need to have these executives in front of Congress and in front of the American people to talk about how decisions are made, how they direct certain content. Do they direct content? How do they judge that content? And, you know, you saw Mr. Zuckerberg sort of dance around a little bit on those kinds of issues. I think this is a conversation that needs to be had.
Do you think it's become too political, though? Meaning, the conversation we were having this morning is whether these Silicon Valley companies may, in fact, lean more Democratic than Republican, and therefore would be censoring people based on their politics.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a source of concern for me as a conservative, as a Republican. Absolutely. I mean, I think you can see that in some of the decisions that have been made previously. And so I think that good common sense judgment here is what we're looking for, and less political judgments. I think that's the beauty of the internet, is you can find any opinion anywhere that you would like to have.
You put Alex Jones in that same category?
You know, I'm really unfamiliar with what he does. I know he's very much on the extreme, and I'll have to leave that conversation to another day.
Separate question, totally apart from the hearing you're going to have this morning. You said last month you would support the spending bill on up to $5 billion on the border wall.
Right.
Wanted to get a sense of where you think that stands and why $5 billion.
Well, I'm the chairman of the Appropriations Committee on Homeland Security, which does the funding for the wall. We have in our bill what the president requested, which was $1.6 billion. We have a bipartisan, we've already voted out of committee in a bipartisan way. I'm very encouraged by that. The House has a different mark. They have $5 billion. You know, it's all about compromise, and it's all about trying to find how we can rearrange the dollars to meet what we think the Border Patrol, in conjunction with the Army Corps of Engineers, can provide us with a good safety number to be able to build the wall and to reinforce the existing wall and to also increase the system. It's not just physical wall, it's the system that we have, roads and drones and other things to make our border safe. And so, you know, we're in a process right now. It's going to be tough negotiating, but I look forward to it.
So, Senator,
yes.
The opposition to Kavanaugh, is there any traction there that you can tell at all, or is that just going to happen in September?
Well, he's coming. He's going to be, you know, as you know, testifying in the first week in September. Here's how I look at this. Kavanaugh's 300 opinions have been out in the public space for years. He's been at the top of the list for at least 2 years since President Trump was elected. He's a known quantity, and I believe that if there was a smoking gun here, it would already come out enough to really take him down and create a lot of negativity. I got to meet him. He is a stellar individual. He's very well thought of in the legal community. So I think he's going to be confirmed. I think he's going to be confirmed bipartisan. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the hearings. But I don't expect anything unexpected because he has so much in the public space.
Okay. Senator, thank you so very much. Good luck with the hearing today.
All righty. Thank you all.
Great to see you. You bet.